1812 Spanish Campaign. By 1812, Napoleon's French Empire had stationed 250,000 troops in Spain. Bogged down in a seemingly endless war, they faced a bitter struggle against the Spanish people, who had taken up arms in a guerrilla war, as well as remnants of Spain's regular armies and an Anglo-Portuguese force under Lord Wellington. Yet the French forces in Spain remained formidable, maintaining tight control over the capital Madrid and most major cities. The year began with yet another French victory in the south, disastrous for Spain and Portugal. This war would become not only a graveyard for thousands of young French soldiers, but also the ruin of the reputations of some of France's most celebrated marshals. Generals Junot, Soult, and Jourdan all suffered defeats. Marshal Massena was recalled in disgrace. Only Marshal Louis Gabriel Suchet stood out as an exception. Most French generals in Spain had earned a notorious reputation for looting. Soult, based in Andalusia, was arguably the worst, reportedly stealing at worth millions of francs from Spanish monasteries and churches. As governor of Aragon, however, Marshal Suchet behaved very differently. He imposed strict discipline on his troops, punishing anyone who tried to steal or extort from the Spanish, and treated the local authorities with respect. He combined this hearts and minds strategy with ruthless military action against the guerrillas and successfully established firm control over Aragon. In June 1811, after a particularly bloody assault, Suchet captured the port of Tarragona. Napoleon rewarded him with the marshal's baton. The emperor then sent him reinforcements and ordered him to capture Valencia. Suchet first repelled a much larger Spanish army that attacked him at Saguntum before laying siege to Valencia itself. The city held a large number of Spanish troops and refugees. To avoid starvation, General Blake surrendered Valencia on January 8, 1812. The French took 18,000 prisoners, including 23 generals and nearly 500 guns, a devastating blow to the Spanish cause. But to reinforce Suchet, Napoleon had stripped troops from other French armies in Spain, and soon withdrew 25,000 of his best men for his impending invasion of Russia. As a result, French forces in Spain were now dangerously overstretched just as Wellington prepared to strike. Spanish guerrillas kept Wellington well informed of French movements, learning that the forces opposing him in western Spain were greatly weakened. He decided to attack before the French could regroup. On the very day Valencia fell, he laid siege to Ciudad Rodrigo, on the Portuguese-Spanish border, eager to seize the city before Marshal Marmont could march to its relief. Wellington launched an assault after just 10 days. It succeeded, though General Crawford of the Light Division was among 300 British casualties. Wellington then marched south to besiege the much more heavily fortified city of Badajoz. An assault was launched on the night of April 6th. The first wave attacking the main breach was cut down in a slaughter. But what was meant to be a diversionary assault on the city's castle succeeded, using scaling ladders, and the city soon fell. The storming of Badajoz cost the British 3,700 casualties. In the aftermath, the surviving soldiers went on a rampage, drinking, looting, raping, and killing. More than 100 Spanish civilians died before British officers managed to restore order. But Wellington had now secured the two main routes between Portugal and central Spain. He then sent his most trusted subordinate, General Hill, with a small Anglo-Portuguese force to destroy the bridge over the River Tagus at Almaraz. This was a vital link between Marmont's army of Portugal and Soult's army of the south. Since the next usable bridge lay 90 miles east at Toledo, the bridge was well defended by forts and redoubts. But Hill led a swift and daring assault. The French defenders were taken by surprise. The bridge and all engineering equipment were destroyed at the cost of only 177 casualties. Wellington was ready to begin his advance into Spain, Regular Spanish troops and guerrilla bands began operations to tie down as many French forces as possible, well from the Bay of Biscay. Sir Home Popham's naval raiding force launched diversionary attacks on French coastal targets. Within 4 days, Wellington reached Salamanca, where Marmont, outnumbered, withdrew behind the river Douro, but as reinforcements arrived, Marmont crossed the river again. For 6 days, he attempted to outflank Wellington, threatening his route of retreat to Portugal. The two armies marched in parallel, often within sight of each other. On the 7th day, Marmont made a critical error. On the morning of July 22nd, Wellington's army occupied high ground 4 miles south of Salamanca. Marmont had no intention of launching a frontal assault. He still hoped to outmaneuver Wellington and force him into retreat. Round 8 a.m., the French seized a hill called Greater Arable, which Marmont used as an observation point. French forces began moving behind Wellington's flank. Marmont convinced himself that Wellington was too cautious to attack. The hills masked much of the British army from view. When Marmont saw dust clouds to the west, he assumed it was Wellington's baggage train leaving Salamanca, a signal of retreat. But in fact, it was the British 3rd Division and a Portuguese cavalry brigade moving into position to strengthen Wellington's flank. Far from retreating, Wellington was preparing to attack. Round 2 p.m., Marmont ordered 5 infantry divisions hidden in the woods behind him to march west to cut off what he imagined was Wellington's escape route. General Morcune's 5th Division led the march but stopped to engage what they thought was a British rearguard at the village of Los Rapiles. General Thomir's 7th Division continued westward right into view of Wellington, who realized the French left flank was dangerously exposed. He galloped 3 miles across open ground to the 3rd Division to give orders in person. Many of his staff struggled to keep up. Upon arrival, he instructed his brother-in-law, General Edward Pakenham, to attack and drive everything before you. The 3rd Division's approach was concealed by low hills until the last moment. Thomir's division was caught completely off guard and shattered in the assault. Thomir's himself was killed. Half his division was killed or captured. The rest fled. At this critical moment, Marshal Marmont was struck by British artillery and carried from the field, seriously wounded. His second-in-command, General Bonnet, was wounded an hour later, leaving command to General Clausel 45 minutes later. The British 5th Division attacked, supported by 2 Portuguese brigades and General Marchant's heavy dragoons. The French saw the cavalry coming and formed squares, but were first hit by British infantry who unleashed close-range volleys before charging with bayonets, disoriented. The French were then charged by Lamarchan's cavalry. The French 6th Division was swept away in the collapse. Lamarchant himself was shot from the saddle, but his brigade helped destroy 8 French battalions and capture 2 eagles. Wellington's attack rolled on, with General Cole's 5th Division striking the center, but Pack's Portuguese brigade was thrown back from Greater Arable, and the whole division soon fell into disorder, despite the collapse of his left flank. General Clausel launched a desperate assault on Lesser Arable, the hinge of Wellington's position. If he could take it, he might yet snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, but his columns were met by the fresh troops of Clinton's 6th Division, who poured musket fire into them. The French began to fall back. Their army had lost the will to fight. Soldiers scattered into the woods. General Ferry's 3rd Division made a brave rearguard stand to buy time for the rest to escape, but it was hopeless. They were soon overrun by the British 5th Division, and Ferry himself was killed. Only General Foy's 1st Division withdrew in good order, as night fell and his army was exhausted. Wellington called off the pursuit. He had shattered Marmont's army taking 7,000 prisoners and inflicting over 6,000 additional casualties, 25% of the French force, more than double his own losses the next day. German dragoons from Wellington's corps struck the French rearguard and achieved the nearly unheard-of feat of breaking a French infantry square, capturing another 1,000 prisoners. Wellington now marched on Madrid, forcing King Joseph to abandon the capital and retreat to Valencia to join Marshal Suchet. On August 12th, Wellington liberated the city. Welcomed by wild celebrations, Soult, now in danger of being cut off in Andalusia, abandoned the siege of Cadiz ongoing for 2.5 years and marched east to join Joseph and Suchet. The next month, Wellington marched north, driving the French back from Valladolid and laying siege to Burgos Castle, but his army lacked heavy artillery, and the French garrison fought bravely, with powerful French forces gathering to the north and south. Wellington himself now risked encirclement. He had no choice but to retreat. His withdrawal became a desperate forced march through autumn rains. The supply system collapsed. Many soldiers starved, raiding villages for food. Madrid was abandoned and recaptured by the French on November 1st. Wellington had returned to where he started 5 months earlier. Yet despite the campaign's grim conclusion, his offensive had liberated large parts of Spain and left the French more overstretched than ever. Reinforced and recovered, Wellington would return the following year to deliver the final blow to Joseph's kingdom in Spain. The year 1812 marked a turning point in the war, not just in Spain, because 2,000 miles to the east in Russia, disaster had engulfed the Grande Army. In 1812, the Peninsular War reached a turning point. While Napoleon's forces controlled much of Spain, they were stretched thin. Wellington launched a bold campaign, capturing key cities like Ciudad Rodrigo, Badajoz, and even liberating Madrid. The Battle of Salamanca saw the French army shattered, and though Wellington's advance later stalled, vast regions of Spain were freed from French control. It was a year of triumph and exhaustion that set the stage for Napoleon's downfall. Thank you for watching this historical journey through the Peninsular War. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories from history. Your support means the world to us and helps keep history alive.